The Trial of the Stone. This is originally a Chinese oral tradition, and it has been rehashed in various versions, one of which is that of another author, namely Stefan Jorsk, this man right here. In his version, the protagonist's name, instead of Anu, the name is Matt, and there are some minor differences between their respective scenarios. But the fundamentals are identical. He was the person who designed this book cover right here, which shows it being set in an African village, hence all of the dark-skinned people right there. Here in my report, we will be tackling the version of this man, Ricardo Keynes Douglas. He is a Grenadian-born Canadian writer who specializes in writing short stories, especially for children. Something that evidently runs in his blood, given that his prodigiousness as a boy led him to leave his country for Dawson College in Montreal, Canada, to enact plays there. Plus, his brother, namely Paul Keynes Douglas, is, like him, an internationally known writer as well. Ricardo is very passionate about his work. This is a quote coming from him. "In my stories, the outsider always has something magical to give or teach us. I'm trying to say, don't block opportunities. Someone might come to you and you might push them away, but they're the one that could change you or the world." Even until now, in the ripe old age of 69, he still hasn't stopped working on his passion. He still acts out scripts, gives out podcasts, and goes on TV shows.
Like, you don't understand what I just tell you. The newspaper say Gondor and blow up. That is twice in a blue moon. Let me tell you something. The last time I traveled on any airplane was about 5 years ago.
The synopsis is as follows. A boy who had just sold 300 cakes, namely Anu, was on his way home when he encountered an old lady in the street with a basket full of fruits, stumbling over. This boy went on to help the old lady, and he put down his basket in doing so. But little did he know, when he went to help the old lady behind his back, someone had snaffled the money that he had earned that day. A judge by the name of Pa Kong evaluated the situation and sought to catch whoever that thief was. In the exposition, once upon a time, there was a boy named Anu. He had been orphaned as a child and lived with his grandmother. They earned a living by frying delicious cakes, which his grandmother bade him to peddle in the streets regularly. One day, good luck smiled upon Anu. He had just sold 300 cakes in quick succession and had earned a bucket load of money, which he put inside the basket where he had stored all of those cakes that he sold. So, homeward he went. But on the way, the fateful moment arrived. Action rose. This is the juncture of rising action. He came upon an old lady holding a basket of fruits and then going off balance, the fruits strewing all over the streets. Anu put down his basket and helped the old lady fix the mess. When he returned to retrieve the basket, it was gone, and so was the money inside it. He searched around and found it on a stone, empty of all the money. He wept so loud over this, he bothered the people around. Pa Kong, a judge, passed by and decided to help the boy with his plight. He interrogated every person around. However, all of them denied guiltiness. So, he came up with the decision to just try the rock on which the basket was, as only it could be incriminated. The people laughed at this apparent ridiculousness. Of course, how could they not? I myself would be laughing too. But they were curious enough to see what the hell was going on. They wanted to find out how the trial was going to turn out. So they went to the court, although it had an entrance fee of 20 cents that they had to drop onto a pot of water. Pa Kong observed the coins being dropped, looking at the pot intently until finally, to his expectation, a man with a big nose, a man who he had interrogated earlier, did his dropping of coins. and from this point on, the climax begins. He ordered his servants to seize the man. They obeyed, and the action unwinds from this and into the following action. They open his bag, revealing the boy's load of money. The people were thrown by this and asked Pa Kong how the hell he found that out. He explained that the cakes were cooked in oil and placed on a paper lining that the cakes then greased. And you also put his money on that paper lining, greasing the coins as well. When the man with the big nose dropped his coins, there emerged oil on the water, something that never happened before, leading Pa Kong to his decision to arrest that man. In the resolution, Pa Kong requested 20 cakes from An Yu. An Yu thanked him and picked up his journey home afterward, relieved. There are 6 characters in the story, and I'll be ordering them in a chronological hierarchy according to potency. The first of which, of course, is the main one, An Yu, the street peddler of cakes who got robbed. The second is Pa Kong, the virtuous judge who investigated the scene and cleverly found the criminal. The third is the crowd who watched the scene unfold, which Pa Kong asked for clues, who scorned his propositions, were curious as to check the trial. The thief was a part of, whom Pa Kong lured using the contagion of the crowd. What contagion I'm referring to is how the crowd went about those dropping of coins. The thief was probably swept by how everybody was doing it and joined the bandwagon unbeknownst to the trap that Pa Kong had set up for him. The fourth is the man with the big nose, the thief who stole An Yu's money but got incriminated. The fifth is the old lady holding a basket of fruit who stumbled over, who An Yu decided to help, but he lost his money while doing so. Lastly, the sixth is An Yu's grandmother who took care of him and gave him his job of selling cakes that she fried back at home. To note, all of the characters are Chinese, the reason why all of the faces that I've just shown are East Asian. There were 2 types of conflicts present in the story. The first, the internal one, the second, the external one. Internal conflict is the struggle of one's psyche, of one's inner state, and its interplay with going on a certain course of action or decision. It is the prerequisite to external conflicts, and is the reason why we give external conflicts attention in the first place. Therefore, I'm going to give examples of internal conflict first. Multiple of these are found in the story. The first one is An Yu's decision to help the old lady. The second is him bemoaning around the place upon the discovery that his basket was gone, over dread on how his grandmother would react upon finding that out. The third is Pa Kong deciding to help An Yu out. The fourth, which is simultaneous with the last 2 mentioned, is one of the people in the crowd, specifically the man with the big nose, refusing to tell the truth upon interrogation by Pa Kong. The fifth and sixth is Pa Kong coming upon his ruse of a decision of trying the stone, and the crowd jeering at this, but at the same time being curious enough so as to follow Pa Kong in his endeavor. The seventh is Pa Kong's peremptory decision to seize the man who dropped his coins on the pot of water upon seeing oil emerge on the water afterward. The last is the crowd's astonishment over how on earth Pa Kong did guess that correctly, and thereby asking him about it. Now let's move on to the external conflict. All of the external conflicts were fought not by the main character, An Yu, but by Pa Kong, the benefactor of the main character. There were 2 external conflicts. The first was between Pa Kong with his attempts at unraveling the truth, and the crowd with their preconceived notions, judgments, responses, and reactions. I may also include within that the man with the big nose lying when interrogated. The second was between the man with the big nose with his incrimination and Pa Kong seizing him for that. The story has 2 scenes. Both of them are set in an unspecified village, probably a market somewhere in China and took place in daylight. That description covers the first one. The second scene's visual layout includes a court, whose exact description wasn't shown. It isn't known if it took place in some kind of justice building or in a crude church. Other aspects of the setting in this scene weren't fleshed out. The theme of this story espouses the fragility of the truth. What I mean by the fragility of the truth is that it manifests itself in a guise of lies. Hence, when the whole crowd denied any guilt, it was obvious that one of them was lying, since who else would have stolen the money? It becomes a game of clever calculation to ascertain it with all the variables available. The best analogy I can think of is in math. When you're finding a missing variable but have the rest of the variables, you compute all of those available variables to find the missing variable. In the same vein, Pak Hong managed to catch the thief when it showed direct evidence, the oiling of the water, incriminating it. I'd say the oiling of the water stands for the last step in this equation, whereas the incrimination stands for the computed variable. I hope you're getting the analogy, Sir Royland. The moral lesson is how the truth prevails. When it is denied verbally, one should look for other means to unravel it, as Pak Hong did, like solving a maths problem. Lying is very risky, as physical, empirical evidence surrounding it betrays it. The truth finds a loophole to surface itself through the cover of lies. So, the next time you lie, make sure it's not set against a backdrop of revealing variables. That is, if you want to be Machiavellian.